The 2025 elections this week proved that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are incredibly weak, and key bellwether races indicate that they are very likely cooked in the 2026 midterms. Let me explain. I'm an independent journalist that's been covering Donald Trump and American politics for over a decade now. I've made appearances on MSNBC, CNN, I documented every single day of Trump's first term, and I write a best-selling Substack newsletter in which I've been covering Project 2025 since 2023. And I'm here to say that the elections last night were a huge win for Democrats and a massive loss for Donald Trump and the Republican Party. We saw New York City, Virginia, New Jersey, Maine, Georgia, California, the list goes on. These key states, we saw shifts to the left in almost every single district. We saw votes defy Donald Trump's aims, and we saw people stand up against a wannabe authoritarian regime that is so far skirting their responsibility to take care of the affordability crisis in America. And there are so many indicators in these races, so many things that happened, and so many key bellwethers that we can see identify trends that could potentially impact the 2026 midterms. So I want to dive into the details here. Stick with me. You're going to learn a lot. I want to start with Virginia. And it's not just because I grew up there and got a little bit of a bias towards it. It's because Virginia is a key bellwether state. Now you might be thinking, what is a bellwether? Well, it's a thing you can look to as a potential indicator for future behavior, right? So in the case of Virginia, Virginia has often been looked at in off-year elections as an indicator for future voter behavior. So in 2017, for example, when Ralph Northam ran for governor, I had the chance to interview him and I was there on the ground to see the shifts. Ralph Northam won Virginia by 9 points in 2017. Now this was huge because we saw suburban shifts. This is where we saw the first indicators of Trump losing women at scale in these northern Virginia suburbs. Loudoun County, for example, we saw that similar in this election. But at the time, it was a big indicator of things to come because in 2018, we saw pretty much identical voting behavior in those same counties that we also saw in other suburbs across the country. So we are seeing similar indicators here in this Spanberger win. So now that we've established why Virginia was such an important bellwether state, you can see why this was such a massive win for the Democratic Party. We see Abigail Spanberger beating her opponent by nearly 15 points. And if you drill down into the closely watched counties, the ones that really matter, you look at Loudoun County, for example. Abigail Spanberger won 64% of that vote. And that's important because it's 8 points more than Kamala Harris won it by in 2024. That is a key swing. And there are suburbs like this in key districts across the country. So that's really important, right? If you look at these individual counties, the swing over to the Democratic side, these are key indicators going into 2026. And that's not all. There's a big Trump factor here that we have to talk about in Virginia, right? DOGE, the federal worker cuts, these Project 2025 purges, hundreds of thousands of federal workers, nonpartisan civil servants that have been purged during this time. They live in Virginia. And we saw that vote show up. 61%, all right? So this is a CNN exit poll. 61% of voters that say they have a federal worker or federal contractor in their household, they voted for Abigail Spanberger, 61%. She won that by a huge margin. That's a big deal. We see Trump's direct attacks on Virginians backfire on him. This is what happens when you legislate by vindictiveness and don't care about the affordability crisis. Authoritarianism has a cost, and we see that cost being paid back with votes in Virginia because Donald Trump imposed that cost on the American people. So that's a huge factor there. So that's what we have there. We have Virginia, a really key state, rebuking Donald Trump unmistakably and really boosting a Democrat there. We saw Mikey Sherrill win by 13 points. This is key because this is also a state that moved a little bit to the right. We saw districts and states across the country last year move to the right. Republicans assumed some mandate that they do not have. This is also important because Donald Trump targeted a New Jersey tunnel project that was going to link up with New York. He targeted that funding, him and Russell Vogt. Again, you don't mess with people's livelihoods. You don't mess with things that actually help them. You will see a backfiring. You will see that come back to get you. Mikey Sherrill ran against that. She talked about that project. She talked about affordability. And that's another thing. Across all of these candidates, affordability was a central focal point. They were focusing on helping people while Donald Trump and the Republican Party are focused on helping themselves. That has been the through line between all of these races. And that brings us to Mamdani. Here in my new home in New York City, Mayor Mamdani is incoming. We see the first Muslim mayor of New York in the post 9/11 era. It's really remarkable. And he won with really a resounding grassroots campaign that had volunteers across the state. It was really inspiring people in the area. And he won on a message of affordability. It was a really resilient, disciplined message. And that's the through line between all of these people, right? We see Mikey Sherrill in her own way talking about the high cost of energy on the ground there. She was talking about that. We see Spanberger doing something similar. This through line between these candidates is affordability, right? And people are trying to do takeaways to fit their ideology, but I think what this indicates here is a big tent party in the Democratic Party here that is able to run candidates that fit the state and fit the district and fit the locality. You can have a Democratic Party that is tied together on trying to provide, affordable housing and affordable groceries and reducing costs at the central level. And then broadly, you can tie them together in this way without having to have one litmus test for every single Democrat. In all of these races, we saw demographic swings towards the Democrats, Latino voters, young voters, women, all of them. These demographics are swinging back towards the Democratic Party. Huge swings. And again, big tent party with candidates that fit their district. I think that is the message out of this, just like in 2018, where you have different people from different, ideological spectrums, right, fitting under one roof to rebuke Donald Trump and his authoritarian presidency and offer affordable policies to the American people. I think that's the focal point here. And that's what ties a lot of this together. New York, Jersey, and Virginia weren't the only wins for Democrats. We saw Prop 50 in California. Gavin Newsom's redistricting push to push back on Trump's national gerrymandering effort and try to offset those Texas House seats, those 5 seats. We see that won huge, over 60% of the vote there. That's a massive win. And also on top of that, we saw statewide Georgia seats, right? These public service commissioners, right? They're huge. These are 2 statewide offices in deep red Georgia. That's another indicator Ossoff should be looking to, right, for the Senate. A huge win. We saw in Maine, a anti-mail-in ballot voter ID requirement there. That was pushed back down. Huge win. Pennsylvania Supreme Court retained a 5-2 majority. The list goes on. I could keep going. Democrats won pretty much everywhere. And this is a huge win, not just for Democrats, but for democracy itself. There's been this idea, this notion that votes don't matter anymore and there will be no midterms. I'm telling you, if Trump could rig elections, he would have rigged these, okay? Democrats won. The people won. People came out and they won in resounding numbers, and it is going to spook Republicans. They are already afraid of losing the midterms. Their fear is going to increase. Now, that could either mean they end up doing increasingly authoritarian actions, or they reverse course, or maybe they end the shutdown and they try to do some other things to patch it up. But my inclination is they're going to probably continue to overreach. And that's going to continue to benefit Democrats ahead of 2026. There are going to be a lot of people trying to take a lot of takeaways from this and say, oh, this means Democrats need to go further to the left, or they need to be more moderate. My takeaway is run the people in the districts that fit those districts. Run the people in the states that fit those states. There'll be a broader ideological debate in 2028 on that primary stage. But ahead of 2026, we're going to see candidate district fit. We're going to see candidates that meet their potential district. There'll be more moderate candidates in an Arizona or a Virginia than there might be in a New York. We're going to see. But all I know is that this is a massive, huge indicator of Donald Trump's weakness and the Republican Party's weakness, and they have a lot to be worried about. For months, I've been making videos, writing articles, talking about how Donald Trump's authoritarian facade is meant to mask deepening political weakness, how his approval rating has been below 40% repeatedly in multiple polls, how he's underwater on major key issues from immigration to the economy to inflation, how he's lost ground in key demographics that helped him win in 2024, and how the Republican Party is down in the generic ballot about 8 or 9 points, give it whatever poll you look at. They are down. And right now we see real world validation of that concept, real world confirmation of the Republican Party and Donald Trump's deepening significant political weakness. Thank you for watching this video. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Please feel free to subscribe, follow me here. And of course, check out my newsletter. A lot of my work is there. Consider becoming a free or paid subscriber. You can go to ahmedbaba.news or go to my link in bio to figure that out to support this independent journalism. But my message for you is that you're more powerful than you realize. The Republican Party, Donald Trump, they want us to be afraid. They want us to think they're all powerful and that there's nothing that can be done. These elections prove votes still matter, elections still matter, your defiance matters. Every time Trump is defied, it matters. 2026 is just 1 year away. We're going to see this and potentially bigger if people don't let their foot off the gas. So keep it up, keep staying engaged, and see you around.